You alright there? Okay, well that's a bit loud. Okay, let's start again now. You alright guys? Welcome brothers. No, it's not me, but I like this. Welcome brothers. Okay, I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to tell you a story about... I'm going to tell you a story about a year group. Yeah? I'm going to tell you a story about a year group. Now, when this year group first came to the school, they were year 7, little year 7 beanheads. You know when they come into, they start in, or what is it in America? Do you start 7th grade, first year of senior school? We call year 7. Oh, when they came, they were so cute with their little beanheads. The boys had the cutest little shaved beanheads, and the girls actually had all natural hair with nice plaits and braids. They were so cute. I was like, my girlfriend had better get pregnant quick. That's what I was thinking. You better get pregnant quick. Yeah, because I want my own little beanhead, like one of these little beanheads. And they were so cute, and they came to the school, and they were so innocent and well-behaved and nice. And the school gave them to one of their untried, untested white boys. Oh, yeah, and he was going to be their friend. Yeah, I know. I mean, not really a disciplinarian. I mean, he would try and emulate the speech of the young. Yeah, blood. Because mans will help you if mans wants to progress in this life, innit, blood? And it's like cringe, embarrassment. Right? What's this white boy doing, trying to sound like a little roughneck? But, you know, they still made, you know, they were still nice little bits. Sir, I've lost my diary. Sir, I've lost my coat. And they burst into tears. You'd be like, I'll look out the window. Look there. What's that brown thing in the playground? That's my jacket. Well, go and get it then. Right? No, you know, just the normal year 7 little beanhead issues. The only problem was, in amongst those cute little year 7 beanheads were some roughnecks. Only 2 or 3. Some piece of shit roughnecks with piece of shit roughneck parents. But only 2 or 3. But for the most part, the little beanheads, they managed to come through their first year of year 7 unscathed. But they were getting a little bit slack. Year 8, they didn't keep the same white boy. They were given a different, untested, untried white boy, and this white boy was going to be their friend. He was going to be there. He wasn't going to be a disciplinarian. He wasn't going to be a father figure. He was going to be, yeah. Follow me on Twitter, yeah, because Maz will be your friend, innit? Right? He didn't have that long to stay in the country, but he was around, and he tried to be their friend. And you know how it is when you have friends. Sometimes you take the piss out of those friends, don't you? And they took the piss out of this guy. So much so there was an assembly one time, and I remember he came from the front of the assembly down to their group, their row, and he said, listen, stop making noise. I was standing on the side just watching. I said, listen, stop making noise. And if you do, you're going to be in trouble. And they were like, ooh. Right, taking the piss out of him to his face. When he turned to walk away, the entire year group stood up. And, you know, like, you know, there's a West Indian expression that you do with your hand, like, get away from me, like, push your hand out like that. Like you said, like you're pushing something away, like you're going to slap someone in the chin from underneath. Come out, right? The whole year group stood up, man. Like that. Now, I'm a professional. They were showing my colleague disrespect. I can't allow that. Even if he didn't notice. So I went over there and I bawled them out. I bawled them out till they started crying, or 1 or 2 of them started crying, because they'd never had a black man speak to them in an authoritative manner before. And I say authoritative because that's the tone I took. Authoritative to other mealy-mouthed fools will be threatening. But I spoke to them in an extremely authoritative manner to let them know that we are a cohesive unit. You're not allowed to do that and get away with that shit with one of my colleagues, who I actually thought he was a nice guy. But he was an untried, untested white boy trying to be friends to year 8s. These year 8s didn't take him seriously. Of course, why should they? We started to hear about thefts. We started to have thieves. Because remember, you got the piece of shit boys in the class, piece of shit girls in the class, with piece of shit parents on either side. And as we were progressing through year 8, or as they were progressing through year 8, they started to infect the good kids, the majority of the good kids. Why? Because they could spin this dumbass white boy any story they liked, and he would try to empathize with them. Yeah, I understand your plight, coming from the ghetto and the streets. And they were thinking, you fucking mug, yeah, that's 3 phones I'm gonna sell now. As things progressed, things got worse. Things got violent. More things started disappearing. And it was blatantly obvious that this untried, untested, unexperienced white boy was actually not helping in any way, shape or form. If anything, he was more of a detriment. His presence was more of a detriment to than a benefit. Now, senior management started to cotton on to this, and so when this year group progressed into year 9, rather than giving them to another untried, untested white boy, they gave them to a man of colour. Not me, by the way. This man of colour I respect. This man of colour is a dad, a strict dad. Kids of his own. And his kids don't muck about. His kids are reading, writing to a higher level than, and they're in primary school, and reading and writing to a higher level than the ones in, than these ones coming into year 9. As things would have it, these year 9s started to get under control again. They started behaving in classes. They started behaving themselves. But year 7 and 8, they'd already formulated, well, everyone else had already formulated a view upon this year group. This year group was the worst year group in the school. This year group, you could isolate students from this year group and talk about them quite publicly when it came to teacher training days. If you have a student like Shanae, yeah, this is what they'd say. Okay. And everyone would think, oh yeah, all right. So, although they were being straightened out in year 9, the impression that they left with some of the untried, untested, unexperienced white boys and girls who were supposed to be in positions of authority was a pretty negative. They were viewed in a very negative light. Come year 10, this man of colour had weeded out the piece of shit boys and the piece of shit roughneck girls. Started weeding them out. Yeah, of course he would, because they're a detriment to the rest of the class. And, you know, but as things would have it, you had other teachers purposely picking on some of the students from that year group, waiting and prodding them until they reacted. And when they reacted, then they'd throw the book at them, they'd be in trouble. And this went on for another year. Their form tutor was a man of colour. Their head of year was a man of colour. And I remember in year 7 and in year 8 and in year 9, some of the teachers that had to deal with them were constantly complaining to the head of year, saying, oh, I just don't know what to do with this year group. They're just so terrible. And the head of year obviously knew what to do, knew how to discipline these young kids, and was of the opinion, same as mine, that maybe some of these untried, untested, unexperienced white boys and girls needed to grow a backbone and be more authoritarian and stop trying to be their friends. Kids at that age don't need friends. They need father figures, mother figures, role models. And that's not what they were getting until they got to year 9. By year 10, I started getting involved with that year group, and I started teaching them. I started finding out, hey, actually, this is not one of the worst year groups in the school. If anything, this is one of the best year groups in the school. You know, their synaptic functions were like firing off like nobody's business. They were showing initiative. They showed ingenuity. Some of them actually were troubled geniuses. I think the plural might be genii, okay? And so I was taking them and I was starting to rub off the shit, rubbing off this coal dust to find diamonds underneath. And I was thinking, yeah, actually, yeah, stick with us. And we actually might be able to get you into university. Come year 11, still with the man of colour as their year group, still with the man of colour as their head of year, this year group started to, as they were maturing, they started to click. Actually, these men of colour that are parenting us, I think we call the term locus parentis. Yeah. Yeah, they were actually doing us a benefit, and some of these other teachers, they were calling us down and being quite personal and quite hateful towards us. They started to clock that their head of year was being bullied. Yeah, I mean, and we weren't encouraging this. We were just emphasizing education and a possible future for them. Now, when they clocked that their head of year might actually be this man of colour, the second man of colour, who was their head of year, when they realised that actually he might actually being bullied. I remember a specific assembly, one of the last assemblies they would have as year 11. And their head of year came out and told them that they weren't pieces of shit. They were rough diamonds. They could actually make it if they tried. The entire rest of the faculty considered them the worst year group in the entire school's history. But it would turn out that this year group would provide some of the best results in the school's history. They were starting to get, and it was that emotional assembly when they realised that their head of year was actually on their side and the rest of the faculty weren't. So when it came to exams, this year group decided to knuckle down and work really hard. And would you believe that they managed to attain some of the best mathematics results the school's seen in a generation? But wait a minute. This flies in the face of what the rest of the faculty was saying. This flies in the face of the worst year group in the, you can't do anything with it, these guys are going to be unemployed, blah, blah, blah. Well, actually, we were the ones telling them positive things. So when their head of year gave a rather emotional speech about how they could make it, they all went away with only a few months to go. And they knuckled down and they started working exceptionally hard. They realized that there were people in the school that wanted to see them fail. By the end of year 11, we'd actually started producing some of the best results the school had seen. Actually, this was quite embarrassing to the senior leadership who'd actually been slagging them off for 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, for 5 years. They'd been slagged off and lo and behold, they started producing some of the best results in the entire school. So the faculty said, no, 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 no. You niggers are not going to embarrass us. You Negroes are not going to prove us wrong. So after they'd had the phenomenal success in the mathematics area, we were expecting phenomenal success in the English area. I mean, these are the core subjects. I mean, if you're going to get a job anywhere, you need maths and English, right? You all know that, right? So, to spite and to slight the form tutor and the head of year, they decided to enter the entire year group on a lower English paper. That's right, the highest they could have got on this paper was a C. Everyone was expecting A's and B's out of this year group, but unbeknownst to them and the parents, a majority of them were entered onto a lower, what we call foundation paper. Yeah, the highest they could have got on this foundation paper was a C. Now, as it would turn out, miraculously, the government decided to make changes at the last minute to downgrade some of the grades from C's to D's and from B's to C's. But it didn't really matter with this year group because the highest they could have got was a C anyway. A majority of them ended up getting C's, but the government were changing the goalposts at the last minute changed all of these C's into D's, even though they did their best on the piece of shit crap exam that they were entered into. All to slight the black head of year and the black former tutor who had managed to turn these supposedly worst kids in the school into potentially the highest achieving year group in a generation. They were entered onto a wrong paper intentionally and downgraded. No, 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 Negroes, you cannot and will not embarrass us and produce the best results that the school have seen in a generation. So a majority of these kids came out after year 11 without an English qualification. Nay, not only that, they weren't entered into another English exam, something we call English literature. You have English language and English literature. There are potentially 2 qualifications that you can get in English, which would have pushed the overall percentage pass rate, A to C, for the entire school, maybe to the 3rd best in the borough. No, 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 Negroes. You are not going to embarrass us, Negroes. You are going to stay down there near the bottom, because that's where we want you to be. As time went on, we could see a change in the staff. A lot of the staff who were actually doing their best, who were there for spiritually positive reasons, saw that there was actually a glass ceiling. There was no way they were going to make it to senior management. That was tied up. In a school with over 50% of the kids as black, the entire senior leadership were white. The entire senior leadership were white. I would also have to add that during this process, there were a number of black females and black males who actively worked against the young people to achieve these high standards and sided with the white racists so they could get their mortgage paid. This is the most reprehensible, disgusting thing I've ever seen in education. Now, I don't mind if, let's say, the head of IT decided to run off with close to £1 million worth of school money. I mean, if he wanted to do that, fine. It's not public funds. If the man who's contributing his own personal wealth to the school doesn't mind if someone runs off with his money, hey, why should we mind? But when you start mucking about with people's results and students' futures, people are going to start saying things. People are going to start voicing their opinions. Yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. You see, this year group potentially could have raised the school to be about 3rd or 4th, 3rd or 2nd in the borough, percentage-wise. Instead, we are now languishing at the bottom of the league table for the borough. Yeah, because of this change. Now, wouldn't it be funny if the following year group were all entered onto the right paper, the correct paper? What we will now see will be a phenomenal change, a phenomenal increase in results. Yeah, that's what we'd see. And what will we put it down to? Would we put it down to the head of year? No, we can't, because you've already fucked up that year group. You can't put it down to that. No, no, no. They're going to say, oh, because, you know, we've implemented this new teaching regime and this person has been working phenomenally well and helping their English improve. It's all a setup. Now, here's the thing. Your average parent should be disgusted and outraged, but your average parent doesn't know. Your average parent just thinks that your kid came to school, okay, and got a bad result when push came to shove. They weren't aware that their entire year group were entered onto a lower paper to depress results, just so this cabal of aging, middle-class, mediocre, wannabe educators, they didn't care that this cabal have fucked up their children's life. It's almost like the parents don't care. So what are we to make of this? They know the parents don't care. We are doing the best by those kids who have piece of shit parents who want something better for themselves. Unfortunately, those in senior management know that their parents are pieces of shit also, and they know that they can get away with this type of bullshit. Just to top it off, because yeah, that's the scandal. That's the scandal I had to relate to you. Just to top it off, I've now found out that the headmaster, the one who has employed all of these, could you imagine a school where you employ someone so bad you have to pay them 20, 30 grand to fuck off? Can you imagine? Can you imagine a school so bad where sexual assaults are covered up, actively covered up, video is deleted and pictures are deleted of students' phones, showing them banged to rights involved in a sexual assault? Can you imagine? Because the ones involved in the sexual assaults, they play for the football team. Yeah, and that's what they're most concerned about, winning trophies. I'll throw you another bone. I was marking a boy's work once, and I went to see what he'd done, and I looked at his computer, and everyone else has 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 files for my subjects. This boy had 2. And when I double-clicked and entered the Word file, I found out there was hardly any writing in there. I asked him to recant what he had written. The motherfucker couldn't read. I think I've told you this one before. The motherfucker couldn't read, but he's won trophies for the school in year 7, year 8, year 9, year 10, year 11, and now he's out in the big wide world. He's now contributed to that 50% unemployment record. If you look at one of my previous videos, you'll see I did a video on the employment rate in North London, in Tottenham. Niggers are under attack. It is open season on a nigger. We are in a conservative government that is forcing out all positive educators of colour and replacing them with these untried, untested, unexperienced white boys and girls who, when things were going well in the economy, probably would have been in the city, but now there's no jobs for them in the city. So now they're coming back to the public sector and they're forcing out all the positive people. And they're employing all of these pieces of shit educators. But guess what? Their faces fit. And they're like, oh yes, oh they're so wonderful, oh they're very good, aren't they? Yes, they're very good. And they just have to be shit. Okay, I'll throw you a couple more bones before I go. One of the pieces of shit had a 19% pass rate. He was promoted to a head of year. One of the pieces of shit had a 38% pass rate in a core subject. He was allowed to take a year sabbatical. A sabbatical means that you're allowed to go off, travel around the world, and you can come back and your job's still here. Yeah, okay. But then I'm also seeing this in the rest of the borough. I've just done something at a youth club where practically all of the equipment has actually been stolen because all of the men of colour, all of the people who were doing things positive, who managed to develop and build up all of this equipment, they were just had the rug pulled out from underneath them. So they took the equipment. They said, "Listen, no one. The people that are coming. Do you think the people they're being replaced with know how to use a Mac? I'm talking about a Mac computer. That's how basic we are, folks. Do you think they know how to use a Mac? Do you think they know how to use Final Cut Pro? Do you think they know how to use Logic? Do you think they know how to use SoundForge? Do you think they know how to use Adobe Premiere? Do you think they know how to use Adobe Illustrator? Oh, no, 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 of course not, of course not. No, no, no. So this is an appeal to parents. If you are not involved in your child's education, if you are not actively involved in your child's education, finding out the names of teachers, which teachers are doing well, if you're not looking at the percentage rates, if you're not looking at the pass rates, your child will fail. And your child will become a piece of shit. Okay? And your child will contribute to the 50% unemployment rate that is currently in this borough for people of colour. That is what you will do. And it will be well deserved. These people are paying their mortgages on fine houses off the back of your child's failure. The most disgraceful thing I recently heard was from the headmaster who was responsible for employing these pieces of shit. And he said, it doesn't matter if you're achieving fantastic grades. It doesn't matter if all the kids love you. Are you practicing? Are you using good practice? What does that mean? It doesn't matter if you're achieving a high percentage pass rate. It doesn't matter if the young people who take on your subject like your subject. It matters about good practice. What the fuck is good? Basically, racists have very little room for maneuver when people of colour come into an institution and start doing a good job. You've got nowhere to turn. The entire premise of your position in seniority is your skin colour. Don't even think you are in the same calibre as educators like us.